In the previous episode, Song Jihan, who was hailed as the martial god, witnessed the end of the world. However, his skill, the nameless divine arts, resisted the deletion of the system. The divine beings who noticed that, gave him a chance and sent him back to the past. After arriving in the past, he used his knowledge to obtain power and monopolize rewards that were yet to be discovered. However, not everything was sugar and sweet. The strongest awakened who represented his country was the Sword Saint, but that man abandoned his country and his daughter, to be with an alluring woman in Japan. Turned out the Sword Saint was his brother-in-law, and the daughter was his niece, the only family he had left. Song Jihan couldn't save her or his country in the past. So this time, he swore to climb to the apex of the awakened. He used the nameless divine arts to obtain martial power, and he also obtained two other unique powers called Divine Power and Force. Song absorbed divine power from relics, but the sword relic he was recently using exploded in his face. As the sword exploded, Song absorbed the divine power from it to increase his divine power stat. But surprisingly his force stat also increased. His force stat would increase by 1 for every 3 divine power stat. His martial power was connected to force, so it also increased and was at 18. Then, the system notified him that force had passed above 17, so from that point forward, he wouldn't be able to absorb divine power from any relic under A rank. Song was dumbfounded, because divine relics were already hard to find, so telling him to get a rank relic was the same as telling him to keep dreaming. Then his niece, Soa, entered his room. She was shocked to see him injured. Song Jihan tried to play it off as if it was nothing, but Soa forced him to get treatment. After that, they went out to eat. Song thought to himself that occasionally eating out wasn't bad. Soa asked him why he chose to come to a cheap Korean restaurant, instead of an expensive one. Song told her to forget it, since they would be eating 3 meals a day together anyway. Then Soa said that they might not be able to do that because she had to go back to school. She said that she was the student president, so taking a break didn't feel right. On top of that, the day she would get the blessing in the gift hall was coming soon. Song recalled that her 18th birthday was coming up. Even in those hellish times, Soa had been waiting for that day to come. She had hoped her situation would get better once she got a good gift. But that hope immediately crumbled right after. The gift Soa received was an F rank. It was a decisive moment that destroyed Soa, who had been strongly persevering, so he had no choice but to slowly bring her hopes down, so she wouldn't be disappointed. He told her that he would drop her off at the academy in his car. She was surprised. Soa told him that it was fine and that she wasn't a child anymore. But Song insisted and told her to listen to him. The next day, when they went to the garage, they were shocked. All the supercars they had were gone. When they gave the Sword Saint's property to the government, they sold all the cars. But there was still one car left. It was her mother's car. Instead of being unable to sell it, they left it alone because it wouldn't make much anyway. Soa asked him if they were really taking that car. Song asked if it was embarrassing. But Soa said that it wasn't that, she was just a bit worried. Song asked what she was worried about. A few moments later, he realized what she was worried about. A thug-like man told them to pull out their car. It was in the parking lot of the Battle.net Academy. Song thought that their cheap car might catch some attention, but he never thought that someone would brazenly try to pick a fight with him. Song got out of the car and told him to watch his mouth. But the thug-like man told him that the place they parked in belonged to them. Some bystanders recognized Song Jihan. They started streaming the incident live, on the internet. At the same time, the 3rd department head of the Divergent Guild, Lee Haeyeon, saw that and decided to go there in person. The thug-like man further insulted Song, calling him a beggar coming out of a shabby car. Song's cold gaze pissed him off. He called him a bastard, and threw a punch. Soa got out of the car and the bystanders thought it was strange. The thug-like man's hand stopped right in front of Song's nose. Song used force to stop his movements. He also shut his mouth close. Then he made him kneel. He said, and I quote, "How vulgar, I'm sure you're someone who fetches someone and drops off students too. If you can't set a good example, then you should at least have the decency to not bully others." At that moment, from inside the car, a girl called out to Soa. Her name was Kim Hee-soo, she was the student vice president. Seeing her reaction, Song figured that they must have been friends. As she got out of the car, she asked the thug-like man what he was doing on the ground. The thug-like man said that the ground was slippery. Kim Hee-soo looked worried and asked Seo where her old cars were. Seo replied that her father sold all their cars. She said, and I quote, "This won't do. I'll drop you off after school." Seo tried to refuse politely, but she kept on insisting. Seeing that, Song was a little confused, because there shouldn't have been anyone so close to Seo at that point in time. A while later, the female swordsman Lim and Lee Hae-yeon came to the parking lot. But no one was there anymore. Out of frustration, Lee Hae-yeon started biting her nails. But Lim stopped her and said that she once made her promise to stop her if she were to bite her nails, since doing that won't solve the problem. Seeing that, Lee Hae-yeon almost fell for her. Then she opened the Battle Tube broadcast. She said that they would follow him in real time. Song Ji-han was once again fighting in the BattleNet arena. Everyone watching was sure that Song would win. He was wiping the floor with the other players. Then he closed his eyes, and he activated the nameless divine arts. He used the heavenly thunder steps to instantly knock out tens of players. Everyone who saw Song Ji-han was shocked, because he cut down a gold-ranked flesh golem in a single flash. So for Bronze League players, matching up with him was the same as facing a natural disaster. After the battle was over, he was transported back to his house. He had ranked first again. Since it was the 5th time he ranked first consecutively, he acquired a huge amount of EXP, leveling up to 15. As he reached level 15, the BattleNet rewarded him by unlocking the game map called Dungeon. After coming back, he had forgotten all about it. Unlike the other game modes where they would only have to fight, you had to clear a variety of traps, mazes, and puzzles. But there was a limit to playing solo. BattleNet encouraged cooperation with a party. However, there were too many people targeting him. His ranking would be affected if his team decided to screw him over. He was considering if he should join a guild temporarily. But he decided not to. Because it was obvious, they would bother him once he left. He chose to hang in there for a while because he would reach silver rank soon. Once he did, he would create his own guild. The next day, Song made breakfast. Seo was surprised at how good it was. In his previous life, when he was in the US, he cooked every meal himself. Then Song asked her if she was going to take her friend's car to go to school, and Seo said she wouldn't. On the way back, her friend annoyed her with difficult topics. She said, and I quote, "What are your plans for the future, Seo? I'm so sorry for you. Is there anything I can help you with? How could your dad do that to his only daughter?" Hearing that, Song said that was lame. But there was another reason. She said that her mother's car was certainly much better. It made her feel warmer and more comfortable. Song thought the same. Then it was time to go to the academy. As they arrived, they saw a swarm of reporters waiting at the gate. They ignored them and went straight to the parking lot. But the two ladies from the Divergent Guild were waiting for them. Song was surprised to see them in a place like that. She said that she came in advance to meet him, and Seo said she wouldn't interrupt and wished him good luck. Lee Hae-yeon came up to him and told him to spare some of his time. They moved to the outdoor area, and the people from the other guilds were frustrated to see that. Lee Hae-yeon told him that she couldn't get used to his reaction. Song apologized for not contacting her. He was quite busy. She said, and I quote, "It was fine. It was fresh and good in its own way. It was a first. It's the first time someone made me chase after them. So, I prepared an appropriate answer. With a platinum-level contract." The other guild recruiters were shocked to see that she handed a platinum-grade contract to a bronze. Then Lee Hae-yeon leaned towards him and said that the contract was only made possible because of her. She said, and I quote again, "It's my feelings for you, Mr. Ji-han." The female swordsman Lim was tired and the other recruiters left. After seeing her up close, Song was certain that Lee Hae-yeon was zero. But he wondered if she still had the same skill. Lee Hae-yeon thought to herself that he was hurting her pride. She said that he should contact her after stamping the contract. She asked for his contact info. Then he proposed to make a bet. He said he just hit level 15 and he was going to a dungeon. She couldn't believe that he reached level 15 in less than a month. She asked about the conditions of the bet. He said that he would connect to the BattleNet and if he didn't come in first place, he would sign a contract with the Divergent Guild, and would also give them his number. Lee Hae-yeon and the female swordsman Lim were dumbfounded. because a lot of people were targeting him, and in that situation, entering the dungeon without a guild or a party was suicide. Then she asked him what he wanted if he won the bet. He said that he wanted to see her status window. He intended to confirm if she still had the gift of cultivation and the same skills as before. She looked embarrassed. In that time period, the cultivation gift's only known use was giving an EXP boost. So it was a gift that was embarrassing for others to see. Looking at her reaction, Song figured that she had it, but he still wanted to confirm it with his own eyes. Lee Haeyeon agreed to the bet. Then Song told them, and I quote, "Wait here, it won't take long." After saying that, he arrived at the dungeon called the Imperial Tomb of the Emperor. It was a massive underground tomb where the legendary emperor rested. While that dungeon featured a large number of monsters, there were also quite a few complex puzzle contraptions such as traps or mazes. However, there was another reason why that dungeon's difficulty level was so high. Because to clear it, all party members had to survive until the end. That's why getting lucky with a good team was extremely important. Looking at his team members, he thought that they weren't too bad. All three of them were from the Black Eagle Guild, and they had good equipment. They all knew of Song Jihan's achievements and were a fan. They greeted him politely. Song told them he would take the lead. The others were thankful and said they would trust him. Song was just relieved that there were no trolls that time around. Then they got started. Soldiers made of earth sprouted from the ground. They were the Imperial Tomb Guards. The others asked him what formation they should use, but Song told them that it wasn't necessary. They should just follow behind him. As one of the soldiers attacked him, Song dodged and smashed its head with a punch. Then with incredible speed, he attacked the remaining soldiers. The other party members were shocked at that. Song asked them why they weren't catching up to him. There were 10 passageways in the Imperial Tomb of the Conqueror. One team was assigned to each passage. Song's team was assigned to the 8th passage. And they were taking the lead at an overwhelming speed. Seeing him in person, his party members were dumbfounded. He was easily breaking those soldiers as if he were playing with sand. Even the people who were spectating him through the battle tube were impressed. A man with the alias Dakejiang donated 10,000 GP. It was none other than the fat Japanese recruiter, Takeda. He tried to please Song with donations. The other viewers were pissed to see him. They were worried that Song might leave at that rate. But Song ignored Takeda and said he wouldn't go to Japan even if it killed him. So, he blocked Takeda's account. The other party members couldn't believe that they had already cleared the 3rd basement floor. The warrior was curious as to how he destroyed such a sturdy thing with his bare body. The magician thanked him, but Song told him he didn't have to thank him. He was just grateful that they were not ruining the game on purpose. Then they arrived at the 4th basement floor. It was a straight passageway. And was full of traps. The other party members were worried about the traps. But Song asked them if it was okay to pick up the pace. They hurriedly replied and said of course. Then Song said he would take the lead, but the Black Eagle Guild members had other plans. They were waiting for Song to leave. A user by the name of Sword King Clan 787 had commissioned a quest to them. He told them to quietly commit suicide and their reward was 1 million. Takeda, the man Song had just blocked just then, was frustrated. He didn't want to use the same method twice, but he had no other choice but to use money. He was curious as to how Song would clear the game. Because he had bribed a lot of people for a lot of money, so they won't make it obvious. And the moment that he runs off, would be the moment he fails. He was sure that it would work and started laughing. But what he couldn't predict, was that there was someone on Song's side. As Song ran, the traps were triggered. When the arrow came at him, the magician said he would take care of it. But Song said that it wasn't necessary. He used force to stop the arrows. Everyone was shocked to see that skill. When the magician looked back at his teammates, he saw that they were about to kill themselves. He warned Song about it. And as soon as he saw that the archer and warrior were about to commit suicide, he activated the nameless divine arts, heavenly thundersteps. In an instant, he rushed towards them. He punched the archer in the face and broke the warrior's arm. Then he turned around, and used force to restrict their movements. The archer and warrior started fighting among themselves. The magician wondered why they were fighting, and Song said they were fighting because they received the same mission. The magician sincerely apologized for his guild members' shameful behavior. Then Song said, and I quote, "I stopped them, so it's fine. You don't have to apologize. Because I know you're like them too." The magician was surprised as to how he found out, even though he didn't do anything suspicious. Song found out by reading the comments of one of his loyal viewers. It was none other than BJ Golden Light. He became a fan of Song Jihan forever. So, he watched his live broadcast. That included his team members too. And there he witnessed it. That time when the Sword King Clan 787 posted a mission to the Black Eagle Guild for 1 million. So, he used 10,000 from his own pocket to warn Song about it. He said it was worth it if it was for justice, and also, he wanted to be his editor. Then Song said that it was weird. Even if someone had a grudge against him, using 1 million was too much. It should have cost less than that, even if they had to take their lives. So he concluded that they were either on the rank of a famous guild or there was a specific group behind that, not the Sword King clan. 1 million in exchange for his status window. It seemed as though they were obsessed with him. Everyone quickly figured out that it was Takeda. Song said that since they were willing to stoop so low, he would change his promise. He would change the subscriber goal from 200,000 to 1 million, and he would keep his promise of winning first. It worked out well for Song. He was getting worried because his sub might reach 200k soon. Thanks to that, he got a real profit. He used the F-grade rope to tie up the Black Eagle Guild members. Song used force to lift them in the air. They threatened him, saying he should let them go unless he wanted to make an enemy of the entire Black Eagle Guild. Then Song used his fingers to swiftly press their pressure points. The warrior was shocked because that was an advanced technique that only a warrior class could do, but Song was supposed to only be a supporter class. Then it hit him. Song was sensitive about his niece. So he wanted to use his skills from his keyboard warrior days. But Song shut his mouth with force. Then he harshly dragged them with him. As the Eagle Guild members were being dragged by Song, the only thing that crossed their minds was that the ground hurt. But he healed them every few minutes. Then he entered the 6th floor. The ceiling was infested with clay soldiers. Tens of soldiers rushed at him. They first attacked the Black Eagle Guild members. But Song stopped the soldiers and threw them away. The clay soldier attacked him, but Song blocked. Then he used his swordsmanship to slice them into pieces. At that point, the clay soldiers on the ceiling awakened. They warned him to not interfere with the Emperor's rest. Seeing their glowing eyes, he figured that they were in berserker mode. Then he received a quest. It said to kill all of the guards and he would be rewarded 1,000 achievement points. It had been a while since he got a quest, so he used his powers to create a shield. It was quite sturdy. And with that, he didn't need to actively protect them. He gazed at the clay guards, and used force to create an absolute territory. No matter how many times he used it, he was impressed by how overpowered it was. All movements of anyone that came within the territory were slowed down. And with just his hand, he could overpower everything. A region where he truly had dominion. He recalled how foolish Baron was, using such a great power only to reinforce mana. Then he was done testing his new power. As the clay soldiers charged at him, a flash of light could be seen. And what seemed like a whirlwind of magic-infused sword slashes crushed the clay soldiers into pieces. As they entered the final stage, they saw the Emperor. He welcomed them and said, "Gold is what humans steal and get stolen in turn. I will give you what you desire." The Conqueror's tomb could only be cleared when all of the party members were alive. That was because the clear condition of the final stage was a respectful bow from all the players. There were 4 white spots in front of the Emperor. They needed to bow down in that area. Song used force. He lifted them and dragged them. Since he entered the tomb, the range of his force had increased. So, if he stood in the middle, it was possible for him to control them. With that, it was a perfect clear. The Emperor said, and I quote, "Good. You may now return to where you came from, invaders." Then the gate of return appeared. The Black Eagle Guild members were relieved that at least they got first place, even though they didn't get that 10 million. But at that moment, Song received a ridiculous quest. It was a hidden quest telling him to show genuine respect to the Conqueror's statue. The reward was 5,000 achievement points and the Conqueror's arrow. Song was motivated to see those ridiculously good rewards. Then he decided to use the magician. He used force, and caught him by the collar. Then he said, and I quote, "Conqueror. No, King of plunderers, this is my display of genuine respect for you. Both the emperor and the magician were confused. Song threw the magician aiming at the emperor. But before he could reach him, the emperor's steed bit off his head. Everyone was shocked to see him get chewed up by a horse. The conqueror asked him if he was calling him king of plunderers. Song replied that a conqueror was the epitome of plundering and he was showing his genuine respect for him. Instead of all the gold, he would take what was really valuable, that arrow that he was holding. The emperor was flabbergasted, he laughed out, and continued laughing. He complimented him and said he liked it. He said, and I quote, "I praise you. I've been touched. I bestow upon you my treasure for having shown me true and genuine respect." Hearing that, Song thanked him and said he would gladly take it. The emperor told him to do his best to try and take his phoenix arrow. The phoenix arrow exuded an immense amount of heat. The Black Eagle Guild members felt like they would suffocate to death, and their clothes caught on fire. Even Song was sweating, he saw that the heat was so dangerous that it could kill them. Just a few moments later, the archer died. Song could instinctively feel that the phoenix arrow wasn't something he could defend against then. If that were the case, then his only choice was to target the longbow, before he shot the arrow. Then he recalled that a long time ago, a sage appeared in front of a man who had lost his way. He said, "I'll point you down the road. You should just head that way, straight and true." That was the human aspect of the 3 talents. With that said, Song performed an extremely sophisticated instant stab. It all happened in a flash. It accurately hit the longbow. That move was called the sage's guidance. The longbow broke and the arrow fell. The emperor asked him, "Plunderer, what is your name?" He said it was Song Jihan. He complimented him and said he was an incredible warrior. He picked up the arrow and threw it at him. He said that he had shown him the utmost respect, so the phoenix arrow was his. As it was time for him to leave, he said that he hoped that if they met again, it would be on a more honorable battlefield. Song tested out the arrow and figured that he could use it as a spear if he just got rid of the tail feathers. The viewer replayed the video in slow motion, but they still couldn't see it. Song thought to himself that there was no way they could see it. Not only was Sage's guidance near instant, but it was also a technique that used thin sword ki to precisely target a point. His control of the nameless divine arts was getting better. The first time he used it, he wasted a lot of strength. But the more he used it, the more efficient and precise it became. The system notified him that he had been recognized by the conqueror. Then there was only one thing left to do. The warrior from the Black Eagle Guild was left. Song said, and I quote, "I apologize, but I'm not generous enough to give someone who betrayed me a free ride." He used his new weapon and pierced right through him. With that, it was finally over. If you loved this video, you'll love the next one. Click the screen to watch it now.